What if your last reliable job and your last affordable meal both vanished at the same time?
The money that we're getting is not enough to support our family.
We have no sick pay. We have no type of benefit.
This might happen soon, because across America, fast food chains are collapsing in silence. Between 2022 and 2025, more than 9,000 locations have shut down. Nearly 50,000 workers have been pushed out. No severance, no second chances, for many. These weren't just jobs, but the final thread holding families above water. When places like McDonald's, Popeyes, and Wendys vanish, so do the paychecks, the groceries, and the rent. These chains were often the last source of steady work in many places, but now they're being pulled out, just because corporations have decided that labor abroad is cheaper. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today, we'll reveal 20 fast food chains flee U.S. market, causing 50,000 jobs at risk. Before we begin, let's face a question. If America no longer protects its working class, who will? Number 1, McDonald's. More than 12,000 Americans just lost their jobs at a restaurant chain that was supposed to last forever. We are talking about McDonald's and the glorious past. From the 80s through the early 2000s, the brand stretched across more than 13,000 neighborhoods in the U.S., a small red and yellow haven where meals were hot, fast, and cheap. There were many who earned their first paychecks under those arches. Parents rewarded kids with a happy meal after grocery trips, for working families. It was more than food, but a familiarity, a pause, and sometimes it felt like home. But by early 2025, that familiarity is being peeled away. According to National Restaurant News, over 500 locations have closed permanently since 2020. This year alone, the chain confirmed at least 170 more shutdowns in core working-class states like Ohio, Illinois, and New York. News on paper, but what shocked the most is that over 12,000 workers have lost their income, routines, and in many cases, their health benefits. These states were supposed to be economically strong, yet the closures now bring local unemployment spikes that dangerously surpass the national average of 4%. How can this be happening in places that are always so busy and so full of life like that? The answer lies in a systemic pivot. Faced with wage hikes in major U.S. markets and a commercial real estate surge of 15%, McDonald's is chasing emerging markets in the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia. Their expansion plan is 30,000 new international stores by 2027. Surprisingly, most of them are oceans away from the people that built the brand. But the collapse also included moral issues that McDonald's wanted to hide from its customers at all cost. A leaked recording from CEO Chris Kempczynski blaming unsustainable American labor burdens for limiting global strategy. It lit up outrage across X and community forums nationwide. Many feel that they have been treated so badly, despite the fact that they work hard their whole life to enrich this country and these corporations. And while McDonald's shifts its focus, workers here are left with nothing but a dark storefront in a cruel twist. It's not declining cities, but active, labor-rich communities that are being hit the hardest. Pennsylvania or Illinois, places where families lived paycheck to paycheck, depending on a nearby McDonald's for income, accessible meals, quick stops before long shifts. Now, the lights are off. Even nearby farms and packaging centers are reporting reduced contracts as volume vanishes. It's not just the food that disappeared, it's the entire support system around it. And yet, while these towns watch their last fast food sign come down, competitors like Raising Cane's and In-N-Out are growing stronger, opening locations right in America's heartland. They aren't fleeing, they're investing. So why is McDonald's, a brand built on American backs, walking away without looking back and leaving us disappointment like that? And when your job, your meal, and your memory all vanish in the same week, what exactly is left of home? Number 2, Burger King. 15,000 American workers were erased from payrolls, while Burger King opened new stores thousands of miles away, in countries most of them will never see. But the most heartbreaking is maybe the fact that Burger King decided to turn its back on the customers who helped build its empire. Do you still remember the time when have it your way was a quiet promise that even the working poor could still have a choice? In the 1990s and early 2000s, Burger King was Burger King stood toe-to-toe with McDonald's, operating over 7,000 US locations out of a global footprint of more than 12,000. The Whopper was the dinner fallback when mom worked late, when dad was between jobs, when the fridge was empty, and for countless Americans, it was the last affordable bite before bills drained the week. But that neon has gone dark across much of the country. According to CNN Business, Burger King has shuttered more than 1,000 US locations since 2020. Restaurant Brands International confirmed a sweeping refranchising program, which means cut out the weak links, close low-performing outlets, and let go of anyone who couldn't keep up with rising costs. The fallout is thousands of jobs lost. These weren't abstract layoffs. They were dishwashers, drive-through cashiers, line cooks, and shift leaders, many without benefits and without warning. Not included in that number are the small farms, distribution trucks, and warehouse workers whose work disappeared the moment those stores closed. It gets more brutal when you realize Burger King is pouring investment elsewhere. According to Restaurant Dive, the chain has pivoted sharply toward Brazil, India, and Saudi Arabia, adding hundreds of stores per year because aging America locations, many built in the 1980s and 1990s, are deemed too costly to modernize. Rather than invest in updates, the company has walked away, and while they walked, resentment grew. In late 2024, a former manager from Florida leaked internal instructions pressuring franchisees to slash employee hours, just to manipulate internal labor metrics. The revelation sparked anger nationwide. In contrast, Chick-fil-A invested in AI-driven kitchen coordination and rebranded to appeal to Gen Z, all while keeping its domestic workforce intact. But it's the human cost that cuts deepest. In Arkansas, Ohio, and Mississippi, towns now sit with empty drive-thrus and nothing but a gas station mini-mart left open late. Working people find fewer hot meals after 10 p.m. Seniors and low-income families lose the only dining option that feels safe and familiar. Unemployment offices, already strained, scramble to absorb thousands of newly laid-off workers. Many end up in temporary gigs, lower pay, no benefits, no stability. The collapse of Burger King is a knife in the side of working-class America. If even Burger King sees no value in staying here, what happens when the next domino falls? Will they all leave, and will anyone be left to care? Keep watching, because up next is another giant that's quietly dimming its signs, and what's happening there might be even more devastating. Number 3, KFC. You know something's wrong when fried chicken becomes a luxury in the very towns that helped build the recipe. Back in the 1980s and early 2000s, KFC wasn't just a place to eat, but a weekend event. Families picked up a bucket of crispy chicken after church, brought it home, and shared it over laughter and iced tea. At its peak, KFC employed over 50,000 people across the U.S., anchoring economies in small towns from West Virginia to Kentucky. Colonel Sanders' smiling face was a signal that dinner was covered, hot, and affordable. But those buckets are vanishing fast. According to QSR magazine, more than 250 KFC locations have closed since 2020. Domestic sales dropped 6.2%, while revenues in the Middle East and Africa surged by over 11%. Instead of adapting to the domestic decline, KFC responded by redistributing assets, a corporate phrase for pulling out of struggling areas and cutting American jobs. More than 8,000 workers have lost employment since 2022, not including truck drivers, local poultry suppliers, and packaging crews who depended on weekly orders. The price of chicken in the U.S. rose nearly 24% since 2021, slashing profits. Meanwhile, other brands surged ahead with modern branding, viral campaigns, and a spicy sandwich that took over TikTok. KFC, slow to modernize, stumbled further. To make matters worse, leaked labor violations in Tennessee sparked a viral boycott in late 2024, while the company issued an apology. The damage was done. Regional stores across the South saw sales plunge. Now, in towns where KFC once stayed open through holidays, the windows are dark and the signs have been stripped. Older residents go without protein-rich meals. Night shift workers are left with vending machines or skipped dinners. It's no longer just about chicken, but about being forgotten. And yet, the next chain in trouble may hit even closer to home. What happens when the fast food tied to childhood road trips begins to disappear too? Number 4, Pizza Hut. In countless American towns, the red-roofed Pizza Hut was more than a restaurant. It was the heart of a Friday night. From the 1980s to the early 2000s, Pizza Hut wasn't just about pizza. It was where birthday candles were blown, post-game celebrations unfolded, and teenage first dates left awkward but unforgettable memories. With its cozy booths, self-serve salad bars, and the distinct smell of fresh dough wafting down suburban streets. The brand operated over 7,000 US locations and more than 18,000 globally at its peak. It was a place to linger, to laugh, to belong. Now, that warmth is fading. Pizza Hut has permanently closed over 500 US locations in the past 5 years. In 2023 alone, nearly 300 dine-in restaurants were either shuttered or converted into delivery-only units. Secondary malls and suburban plazas, once anchored by the brand, now stand empty or leased to unrelated businesses. Business Insider estimates that more than 10,000 American jobs have disappeared as a result. Pizza Hut's downfall stems from its refusal, or inability to evolve, its dine-in model. Once beloved, was outpaced by Domino's high-speed delivery networks and digital ordering. Younger generations labeled Pizza Hut as slow, outdated, overpriced, and the brand failed to modernize its look or menu. Legal and financial turmoil added to the collapse. In 2024, a major California franchisee filed bankruptcy after lawsuits from hundreds of unpaid workers during the holiday season. While Pizza Hut receded, brands like Little Caesars surged ahead, dominating small towns with $5 hot pizza combos and high visibility near gas stations and grocery centers. The consequences are personal. For many families, Pizza Hut was the one place where 3 generations could sit together in peace. Now, that shared table is gone, replaced by cold boxes from an app. Tens of thousands of workers, retirees, college students, single mothers have lost income they depended on. Dark kitchens eliminated service jobs and erased community visibility. What happens when even pizza, once the great equalizer, becomes distant and impersonal? Number 5. Wendys. For years, Wendys was the one fast food chain that still felt human. Back in its heyday, Wendys stood apart from the rising tide of factory-processed meals. Square burgers made with fresh beef, not frozen, baked potatoes instead of soggy fries. That sassy, "Where's the beef?" commercials from the 1980s gave working Americans something to laugh about and believe in. Across more than 6,000 US locations, the brand became a lunchtime staple for factory workers, a dinner stop after school, or a place where grandparents and grandkids could eat real food without guilt. But behind the polished quarterly reports, a quiet retreat is underway. Between 2021 and early 2025, over 200 Wendys restaurants have shut their doors. In Q4 2024 alone, the company announced the closure of 97 underperforming locations, primarily in New York, Michigan, and throughout the Midwest. While domestic revenue dropped by 8%, international growth, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, rose over 11%. An estimated 6,000 workers have been affected, many of them longtime employees. Instead of reinvesting in communities where Wendys was once a pillar, corporations chose expansion overseas. In 2023, the company poured $120 million into new markets like the Philippines and UAE. Meanwhile, aging US stores fell into neglect. A viral TikTok video posted by a former employee in Indiana exposed expired food and filthy kitchen conditions, garnering over 2.3 million views in 24 hours. Trust shattered almost instantly, and unlike Domino's or Shake Shack, Wendys failed to pivot. Its digital app lagged, its design felt dated, and its value proposition faded. Five Guys, offering transparent ingredients and a simple, community-based model, quietly filled the gap Wendys left behind. For small towns in Ohio or West Virginia, the red-haired girl on the sign once meant something. Now, boarded windows and broken signs tell a different story. Those who once saw Wendys as their last good job now see an empty building, and a message they weren't meant to hear. We don't need you anymore. But the next chain on this list may hurt even more because it built its entire reputation on comfort, and now it's disappearing from the places that need comfort most. Number 6. Subway. There was a time when Subway meant control, customization, and something vaguely healthier. With over 27,000 US locations in 2015, it was everywhere from gas stations to hospitals. Its slogan, Eat Fresh, promised a fast food option that didn't feel like giving up. But by 2024, over 6,000 US stores had disappeared. In 2023 alone, more than 1,000 closed due to rising rent and falling traffic. The sale to Rourke Capital, which also owns Dunkin' and Arbys, led to a full-scale restructuring. Over 12,000 jobs were lost. Why public trust crumbled. CBC exposed that Subway's chicken wasn't entirely chicken. Bread contained a chemical used in yoga mats. Franchisees accused the company of negligence. Younger generations turned to Chipotle or Sweetgreen. Jersey Mike's and Firehouse Subs thrived by focusing on fresh ingredients and consistency. Now, Subway is quietly vanishing from small towns. Hospitals, schools, and travel stops once anchored by a familiar sandwich are going empty. Immigrant workers, single parents, and retirees who found stability at Subway are now out of work, often without severance or support. Entire families who bet their futures on franchise ownership are watching their dreams evaporate when even the healthy fast food isn't safe. What's left to trust? Number 7. Dairy Queen. Summer used to taste like Dairy Queen. Soft serve cones, blizzard cakes, and the red neon sign were woven into the rhythm of American life, especially in the Midwest and South. At its height, DQ had over 6,000 US stores, packed every afternoon with kids and grandparents alike. But that sweetness is melting away. Between 2020 and 2024, over 300 locations closed. Berkshire Hathaway shifted investments overseas. China now has more than 1,000 DQ locations. Domestically, struggling franchises lost funding, saw ad budgets slashed, and couldn't afford equipment upgrades. More than 7,000 workers, mostly summer and part-time staff, were affected. Why the collapsed dietary trends turned cold on sugar and dairy. A 2023 investigation exposed expired ingredients at several DQ locations, shattering trust. Meanwhile, Culver's and Freddy's surged by staying loyal to US communities and keeping quality high. For small towns, DQ was the last glowing storefront after sunset. Now it's a dim, empty shell. Students lost their first jobs, families lost extra income, towns lost gathering spots that once hosted first dates and end-of-school-year treats. Even joy feels unaffordable now. When the smallest pleasures like ice cream slip away, it's not just about dessert, it's about losing pieces of who we are. Number 8. Hardees. For decades, Hardees was the working-class breakfast of the South and Midwest. Hot sausage biscuits, crisp hash browns, and coffee strong enough to cut through 5 a.m. fog. At its height, it operated over 3,000 locations across labor-heavy regions, proudly serving America's working breakfast. But that promise is crumbling. Between 2019 and early 2025, Hardees shut down more than 400 stores, many in towns across Arkansas, Missouri, and West Virginia. In 2023, U.S. sales plunged by 9.4%. Parent company CKE Restaurants responded not by repairing, but by retreating, shifting investment to the Middle East, where tax breaks and cheaper labor offered quicker returns. Over 6,000 American jobs were lost. Rising food costs, especially for eggs and sausage, broke the $6 combo model. Online, customers aired frustrations about inconsistent food and sanitation violations. In Alabama, photos of unsafe egg storage sparked outrage. Meanwhile, Bojangles stayed loyal to its southern base, preserving menu tradition and affordable prices. Now, hundreds of towns wake up with nothing but silence. Where workers once grabbed breakfast before shifts, they now drive miles or skip the meal entirely. For many over 40, Hardees was the last stable job. Now they're out with no severance, no warning. The real loss isn't just breakfast, it's recognition. When even the morning meal walks away, who's left standing with working America? Number 9. Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box used to be a midnight secret, a glowing refuge for night shift workers, broke students, and those clinging to comfort after long days. With over 2,200 locations in California, Arizona, and Nevada, it offered tacos for $1 and greasy burgers at 2 a.m. when everything else was dark. But from 2021 to early 2025, more than 180 stores closed. In places like Fresno and Tucson, sales dropped over 12%. CEO Darren Harris pushed to cut the red strategy, closing unprofitable West Coast stores while expanding in Texas. Over 5,000 workers were let go, many without notice. Jack in the Box invested over $50 million into AI kitchens and self-service kiosks. That shift replaced people with machines while fueling resentment. Former employees flooded Reddit with stories of sudden firings, unpredictable schedules, and feeling erased. Meanwhile, In-N-Out stayed small, human-centered, and wildly beloved. For countless Americans, Uber drivers, ER nurses, night janitors, Jack in the Box was more than food. It was the only light left on. Now, that light's gone, when even late-night food is automated, outsourced, and shut down. The message is loud. There's no room left for people in the places that once served them. Number 10, Popeyes. Popeyes once gave KFC a run for its money, offering bold Louisiana flavors that became a weekend treat for working-class families. The viral chicken sandwich boom from 2015-2020 turned it into one of America's fastest-growing chains, with over 3,900 U.S. locations at its peak. But by early 2025, the buzz faded. According to Restaurant Brands International, Popeyes has closed over 170 locations, mostly in the South, its historic stronghold. U.S. revenue fell 5.6% in 2024, while international markets soared nearly 13%. Over 4,500 American jobs were lost in just 2 years. Post-viral. Quality collapsed. Complaints about sloppy service and inconsistent food flooded social media. A leaked 2023 video of unsafe working conditions in Arizona fueled boycotts. As Popeyes expanded into India, Indonesia, and the UAE, American workers and customers felt abandoned. Meanwhile, Chick-fil-A maintained steady U.S. Loyalty. Doubling down on service and in-country investment. Now, the neighborhoods that made Popeyes a weekend staple are left with shuttered stores and silence. Low-income families, elderly residents, and late-shift workers, those who relied on affordable, flavorful meals, are left with nothing but microwaved alternatives. Popeyes wasn't just chicken, it was Southern culture in a box, and as it's pulled out, so too goes a piece of regional identity. Number 11, Boston Market. In the 1990s, Boston Market was America's go-to for a hot dinner that felt homemade. With rotisserie chicken, mashed potatoes, and cornbread, it gave working parents a warm, filling meal without time in the kitchen. The chain grew to over 1,100 locations nationwide, but by 2025, that number shrank to fewer than 300. According to Nation's Restaurant News, Boston Market closed over 80 stores in 2023, alone due to unpaid rent and vendor debts. Lawsuits from workers over wage delays worsened its public image. At least 3,000 jobs vanished. Under Engage Brands since 2019, the company floundered. Regulatory fines in New Jersey for labor violations signaled deep internal chaos. Meanwhile, Cracker Barrel thrived by staying consistent with its family-first focus. Boston Market closures hit hardest in working-class communities. Elderly singles, single moms, and exhausted families lost access to a hot, balanced meal under $10. Workers, many without degrees, lost the only stable jobs they'd known in over a decade. When even a home-style meal is priced out or pulled away, what's left in a nation built on hard work and hot dinners? Number 12. Checkers and Rallies. Checkers and Rallies were once fast food's loudest underdogs, cheap, greasy, unapologetically bold. They gave working Americans a way to eat big on a small budget. With more than 850 locations across low-income areas, these twin brands fed night shift nurses, factory hands, and college kids alike. But between 2021 and 2025, over 120 locations were quietly removed from maps, mostly in Michigan, Florida, and Louisiana. Some cities now have none left. Nearly 2,500 workers, many from vulnerable communities, lost their jobs without media attention or public outrage. The collapse wasn't sudden but systematic. Costs skyrocketed. Rent increased by nearly 17% in dense urban neighborhoods. Yet Checkers failed to automate, lacked a delivery app, and relied entirely on human labor. A leaked 2023 internal report revealed many stores lacked basic food safety equipment, driving away the very customers they once served. Sonic Drive-In, once a peer, modernized and pulled ahead, offering better tech and customer experience. Now, in dozens of towns, Checkers was the last hot meal you could buy under $5. It's gone, and for many who relied on it, the silence says everything. Number 13, Arbys. Arbys once meant something different, a meaty, messy, honest meal, with over 3,000 locations, especially near highways and rural stops. It fueled truckers, builders, and factory crews with roast beef sandwiches and curly fries too big to finish. Since 2020, more than 150 locations have closed, particularly in Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri. Visitor traffic dropped more than 20% in 2024, and locations near highways were hardest hit due to reduced travel. Over 3,500 workers were quietly let go without severance, without transition. Arbys failed to evolve. Younger eaters looked for plant-based, portion-controlled, or tech-enabled options. Arbys stayed stuck in its past, offering large, meat-heavy meals at rising prices. Customer complaints increased long waits, outdated interiors, inconsistent service. Brands like Jimmy John's and Jersey Mike's took that opening, innovating in both food and experience, and captured a sandwich market Arbys once owned. What's left behind is more than empty stores. It's the loss of a meal that made working Americans feel full, respected, and human. Number 14, Sparrow. There was a time when a single slice of Sparrow pizza meant more than just a meal, it meant family outings, weekend trips to the mall, and the smell of buttery crusts drifting through food courts. During the 1990s and early 2000s, Sparrow operated over 1,000 global locations, primarily in American shopping malls, for many working-class families. A slice of their oversized pizza was a well-earned treat at the end of a modest shopping trip. But as of early 2025, fewer than 270 Sparrow outlets remain in the United States, over 70% gone. The chain filed for bankruptcy twice in 2011 and 2014, but its true collapse came with the post-pandemic death of the American mall. In 2023 alone, more than 50 Sparrow stores closed permanently. Mall foot traffic in some cities dropped by as much as 40%. According to Retail Analytics Group, nearly 1,500 workers lost their jobs in silence. Sparrow never expanded beyond mall food courts, and it never adapted to app-based delivery or fast casual dining. In contrast, brands like Mod Pizza and Blaze Pizza have flourished by offering custom toppings, fast oven-bake options, and young-friendly branding. For towns with one mall, and that mall housed a Sparrow, a bookstore, and a movie theater, this isn't just business loss, it's cultural erasure. Former part-time mall employees, single mothers, and teens on their first date now find themselves priced out or forced into soulless alternatives. What happens when even pizza, once the cheapest joy, is no longer tied to memory, but to loss? Number 15, IHOP. IHOP once defined the American Sunday morning. It was where families lingered over bottomless coffee, where pancakes drowned in syrup could stretch breakfast into lunch. With over 1,700 locations nationwide, it wasn't just a restaurant, it was part of the cultural clock. But the rhythm is fading. Since 2020, over 100 locations have shut down, especially in rural towns and aging suburbs. In Q2 of 2023 alone, 32 locations were closed. Domestic revenue dropped 6.5%. Nearly 2,000 jobs disappeared, most belonging to women, over 45 workers unlikely to be retrained for gig-based or tech-driven jobs. IHOP never adapted to modern convenience. While competitors like Denny's embraced delivery and menu optimization, IHOP clung to in-dining nostalgia. Its failed 2018 rebrand to IHOP alienated longtime customers. For seniors and blue-collar workers, IHOP was more than a meal, it was time. It was warmth. Refill coffee and soft conversation, oft. Now, many are forced into rushed, impersonal drive-thrus or stay home alone, when even breakfast becomes transactional. Do we lose more than just eggs and pancakes? As familiar restaurant chains quietly flee the US, what's vanishing isn't just food, it's memories, jobs, and the sense of belonging. Tens of thousands are left unemployed, not because they failed, but because the brands they once served chose profit elsewhere. Families lose their routines, workers lose their footing, communities go silent. And now, The question echoes louder than ever after everything they've given. What does America still offer to the people who built it?